It's a great finish, and she has set her stall out early. Great finish.
He is ignored.
In true Ostapenko fashion, expect plenty of winners. Two-time finalist. Simple finish at the end.
There is a highly infectious, profoundly embarrassing, and completely irrational psychological phenomenon currently spreading through the absolute darkest, most unreasonable corners of the worldwide tennis internet. It is actively and aggressively fueled by a deeply passionate but thoroughly uninformed casual fan base that simply cannot emotionally accept the harsh, relentless, and brutal reality of elite professional sports. Welcome back to Plesh Plus, the premier destination on the entire internet for the raw, unapologetic, and completely unfiltered truth behind the cutthroat business, the agonizing locker room psychology, and the elite tactical biomechanics of the WTA Tour. Today we are actively and forcefully dropping the absolute hammer of reality on one of the most ridiculous, mathematically impossible, and entirely fabricated conspiracy theories that has ever plagued the modern tennis landscape. Following the completely staggering and heartbreaking collapse of Philippines' global sensation Alexandra Eala against the fiercely aggressive 2017 French Open champion Elena Ostapenko at the Linz Open, a massive, highly coordinated, and completely delusional internet rumor has begun aggressively spreading. Enormous social media accounts, fan pages, and heavily biased forums are actively and loudly claiming that the WTA is currently investigating the match, and that due to extreme crowd interference and alleged unsportsmanlike behavior, the round of 16 showdown is miraculously going to be officially replayed. Let us be completely, undeniably, and entirely crystal clear right now. That rumor is absolute, unrestrained, and entirely pathetic nonsense. There is absolutely zero chance, zero mathematical probability, and zero bureaucratic precedent for this match to ever be replayed. We are going to aggressively dismantle the completely outdated but entirely rigid WTA rulebook. We are going to expose the absolute truth behind Ostapenko's highly publicized spectator confrontation, and we are going to deliver a massive, deeply uncomfortable reality check to a fan base that is desperately pleading for a corporate bailout instead of demanding athletic accountability. Buckle up, hit that subscribe button to support the absolute only channel delivering the undisputed truth, turn on your notifications, and let us ruthlessly dissect the complete anatomy of the greatest fan delusion of the 2026 season. To truly and deeply comprehend the sheer staggering magnitude of the absolute absurdity driving these match replay rumors, you have to meticulously analyze the incredibly dark, suffocating, and entirely unforgiving legal framework of the Women's Tennis Association. The mainstream sports media loves to generate cheap clicks by pretending that the WTA is a completely flexible, deeply empathetic organization that genuinely cares about the emotional well-being of rising superstars. But in the cold, hard, and absolutely ruthless reality of global sports business, the WTA operates under a highly rigid, deeply bureaucratic, and utterly uncompromising set of legal statutes. In the entire multi-decade history of the professional tennis tour, a completed match has absolutely never ever been officially overturned, erased from the record books, or mathematically replayed simply because a player was heavily distracted by the crowd or because an opponent engaged in a prolonged argument with the chair umpire. Matches are not replayed because of perceived momentum shifts. Matches are not replayed because a loud, deeply obnoxious fan sitting in the front row actively yelled during a critical second serve. The casual internet fanbase is aggressively fabricating highly dramatized fictional legal loopholes that simply do not exist in the actual world of professional tennis. When the chair umpire officially calls game, set, match, and the two athletes physically approach the net to conduct the final handshake, the mathematical result is permanently and undeniably carved into the immortal history books in thick black ink. Elena Ostapenko won that tennis match 6-4, 7-5. The points have been officially awarded. The prize money has been officially distributed. Ostapenko has already physically advanced to the quarterfinals. The idea that a massive billion-dollar corporate entity like the WTA would completely halt a highly scheduled, internationally televised tournament to force two elite athletes back onto the red clay to replay a match because the internet is outraged is an absolute, unmitigated fairy tale. We absolutely must aggressively dive into the elite tactical and psychological reality of the specific incident that actively triggered this massive wave of global internet delusion. The casual fanbase is aggressively pointing their fingers directly at the highly chaotic and entirely volatile moment in the second set when Eala Ostapenko, completely facing down a terrifying and seemingly insurmountable 5-1 deficit, actively engaged in a massive and highly visible verbal altercation with a disruptive spectator in the Austrian crowd. The deeply passionate and highly emotional fans of Alexandra Eala are loudly claiming that Ostapenko actively and illegally utilized this specific confrontation as an unearned medical timeout, essentially manufacturing a fake and completely artificial delay of game to entirely destabilize the young Filipina prodigy and completely shatter her serving rhythm. They claim this is undeniable proof of illegal gamesmanship that explicitly warrants a full match replay. But when you completely strip away the loud emotional bias and look directly at the cold, hard psychological landscape of the sport, you realize that Ostapenko did absolutely nothing illegal. Complaining to the chair umpire about a legitimate fan disturbance is entirely within the absolute legal rights of any professional player on the tour. The umpire physically permitted the delay, actively managed the crowd interaction, and officially resumed play within the legal parameters of the sport. Was it highly chaotic? Absolutely. Was it incredibly frustrating for Eala? Without a single shadow of a doubt. But it was absolutely not a violation of the fundamental rules of tennis that would ever in a million years mathematically justify a replay. Ostapenko simply recognized a completely hostile environmental variable, actively brought it to the absolute forefront of the match, and utilized the resulting chaos to entirely reset her own turbulent mental state. It was not a cheat code. It was the brutal and entirely legal reality of top-tier professional sports. This massive and highly significant tactical reality brings us directly to the absolute, undeniable and suffocating concept of elite psychological warfare, which is precisely what the casual fanbase completely fails to understand. When you are actively competing at the absolute highest levels of the WTA Tour against former Grand Slam champions, you are not just playing a physical game of hitting a fuzzy yellow ball over a net. You are actively engaging in incredibly intense, isolated and highly volatile psychological combat. Elite, battle-hardened veterans like Eala Ostapenko have spent their entire lives mastering the absolute dark arts of momentum manipulation. They actively and ruthlessly weaponize the environment. They weaponize the crowd. They weaponize the specific timing of their towel breaks. They weaponize their emotional outbursts to completely alter the psychological temperature of the arena. Alexandra Eala was actively dominating the match, holding a massive 5-1 lead and completely controlling the baseline rallies with her heavy left-handed Rafa Nadal Academy topspin. She had her opponent entirely pinned to the floor. But the exact moment Ostapenko initiated that highly disruptive delay, Eala's pristine machine-like concentration completely and violently shattered. The brutal and unforgiving lesson here is not that Ostapenko cheated and the match should be replayed. The brutal lesson is that Alexandra Eala completely failed to mentally survive the chaos. A true immortal generational champion absolutely must possess the terrifying cold-blooded killer instinct to completely ignore the circus happening on the other side of the net, walk directly up to the service line and powerfully serve the match out. Eala allowed the external uncontrollable variables to actively seep into her own biomechanical execution, resulting in a completely catastrophic 0% win rate on her second serve and an absolute barrage of broken service games. The defeat was entirely and mathematically dictated by a failure of mental execution, not a failure of the rulebook. But the absolute most dangerous and highly toxic aspect of these fabricated match replay rumors is the profound and deeply terrifying psychological damage it actively threatens to inflict upon Alexandra Eala's own long-term athletic development. When a fiercely passionate and completely devoted fan base aggressively surrounds a young 20-year-old athlete with massive comforting excuses, they are actively poisoning her ultimate potential. If the casual internet echo chamber successfully convinces Eala and her elite coaching staff that she was entirely robbed, that the match was fundamentally unfair and that she somehow deserves a bureaucratic bailout, they completely strip away her athletic accountability. Growth, absolute biomechanical evolution and terrifying mental fortitude are exclusively forged in the incredibly dark and highly agonizing fires of massive heartbreaking defeat. Eala absolutely needs to feel the full crushing and completely unmitigated weight of blowing a 5-1 lead to a Grand Slam champion. She needs to physically taste the bitter disappointment. She needs to look directly into the cold hard mirror and absolutely acknowledge that when the ultimate terrifying pressure of closing out a top-tier opponent presented itself, Her second serve completely evaporated and her killer instinct violently failed her. The elite and highly specialized minds at the Rafa Nadal Academy do not build immortal champions by filing completely useless internet petitions for match replays. They build champions by aggressively marching directly back onto the practice court, completely breaking down the flawed mechanics and spending 1,000 agonizing hours meticulously engineering a highly weaponized second serve that will never ever break down under pressure again. The victim mentality is the absolute and undeniable death of greatness, and the fans pushing this ridiculous replay rumor are actively attempting to transform a future global titan into a highly fragile and completely sheltered victim. The clock is officially and permanently stopped in Linz. The massive alarm bells have completely ceased ringing, and the absolute reality of the situation is written in undeniable stone. We are actively and confidently calling out the entire global tennis internet right now, and we are absolutely not backing down from this massive reality check. The match between Alexandra Eala and Jelena Ostapenko is completely, entirely, and permanently over. There will be absolutely no replay. There will be absolutely no miraculous corporate intervention. The world of global women's tennis demands absolute and unyielding mental toughness, and the Filipina superstar just received the most brutally heavy education of her entire professional career. Defeating players like Jelena Ostapenko on the heavy European clay is not just about raw power. It is about completely surviving the absolute darkest and most chaotic psychological warfare imaginable. Eala has officially felt the terrifying velocity of a Grand Slam champion's desperate comeback, and she is going to actively use this massive devastation as high-octane rocket fuel for her absolute ascension. The revolution has absolutely not been cancelled by an Austrian spectator. It has simply been aggressively tested in the absolute deepest waters of the sport. Make sure you are permanently subscribed to Plesh Plus as we continue to ruthlessly document the greatest athletic ascension in modern tennis history, and we will be right here to analyze every single massive and undeniable reality check on the global stage.